Ultra.
Goes huge for Ultra, and they get their first home series victory.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Made in Esports. One of your hosts, Spencer, with me is Chris, and on today we're going to keep this one short, but we're going to talk about some potential dark horses for Stage 4. Because obviously there's a few games left in Stage 4. It's going to land for the final, so that's very, very exciting. And there's, I think, a couple teams that, especially this particular week, started to establish themselves as, you know, that next maybe New York or Toronto, where they're maybe underrated going into that stage, but can turn up and go on a run. And so obviously to be a dark horse, I think you have to be one of the teams not in the top 4 by what most people would consider top 4, being FaZe, Ultra, NYSL, and Optic. I think those at this point are the consensus top 4 teams in the league. So we're going to pick 2 quick teams who I think can seriously go on a run and maybe make a name for themselves.
On a tear.
Yeah, and I say make a name for themselves, but I just mean like perform well. These teams have names for themselves, so...
They do not have names, or the names are tarnished. But let us know what you guys think in the comments below. If you like today's content, please give it a like and subscribe. If you don't, unlike and unsubscribe and leave negative comments.
But maybe don't do that, actually. Now that I'm thinking about it, just be positive. You know what I mean? Like, subscribe, and share this video. Maybe just tell me, you know, how good my hair looks.
It's looking quite slick right now.
Thank you. I appreciate it. With that out of the way. No, I'm kidding. Go.
No, I was going to say, guys, comment if you think he looks like that one emo kid from South Park.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. I don't know his name, but I know exactly which person you're talking about. So now I'll just bring my hair over to the side. And we are good to go. So that out of the way, guys. Again, also let us know who your dark horses are down below. We're going to give you 2 of our picks, but let us know if there's any other team that jumps off the page. And, you know, do you think the Thieves can turn around, for instance? Do you think Paris is maybe going to be able to turn up? Let us know who you think can really shock some people at this LAN event. But again, the first team I want to talk about here is Florida. And this, to be completely honest, was a team that I didn't really see coming. This was a team that we had high expectations at the beginning of the year. Obviously, things haven't exactly panned out. There's some reasons why that was. Some that were foreseen, some that was not. I did like the change of them bringing out Slacked and bringing in Havoc, kind of. I didn't think that Slack struggled at moments, so I was in favor of making a change with this roster. And if there was a change to be made, I did think that Slack was probably the person who should go. But Havoc would not have been my first choice to bring in. I understand that it made sense in terms of him being on the roster. But when they were looking at some other names, like Decimate, for instance, who had looked really good in contenders, and Yeez, I believe, as well, who also had shown some, I say contenders, but you know what I mean, challenges, who had also shown some glimpses of potential. Maybe they were going to take a run at some European talent. I didn't know how this roster, this 4 was going to work, and I think up until this moment, you know, from what we had seen, it hadn't really worked. But I'll be honest, this team has looked fantastic in this stage.
It's looked really good.
Yeah, the
dividends are being paid off.
Yeah, and I mean, we knew the AR talent that was there. I do think it helps that this is a pretty AR favored meta to a degree. Obviously, subs are extremely important, but I think that this is a meta where like your ARs can put some pressure on the map, and having people like Skies and Awakening, especially when they're firing on the same page, are, you know, some of the best AR duos in the league. I'm not going to say the best AR duo in the league, but it's a really good AR duo. But I think the real surprising point for this team is in the SMG duo, because this was an SMG line that I thought was going to struggle in relation to a lot of other SMG lineups out there. You know, when you think about some of the top tier ones. But man, they came out there, and especially this last couple weeks, and they looked great. Obviously, they beat the Toronto Ultra. They go 3-2 there, which I think Ultra was a little bit off. I do think if they rematch, I still have Ultra winning that game. But regardless, a win is a win. You gotta be, you know, you can say you get lucky, say whatever, but you gotta be good to be lucky. You know, that's a pretty big saying. So they put themselves up in a position to win that game, and they were able to close it out. And obviously, they beat every other team they played against aside from New York. And that New York game was another very winnable game, where they were up 2-1, and New York obviously storms back and takes those final 2 maps. But again, like, it's not just the fact that they came close to New York. And I know there's some stuff going on behind the scenes in New York. I know Hydra's been feeling under the weather. I know, you know, there's ASIM visa issues. They've talked about the lack of practice. So maybe I'm reading too much into these like close series with a team like New York, because maybe they're not fully at 100%. But, you know, Neptune was making some great plays. I remember that on hardpoint, he made a big flank there to kind of put Florida over the edge. And it's not just the fact that they're winning and making games close. It's the fact that they're looking good while doing it. So Florida's a team that has really impressed me.
Exactly. And I think their map pool, I think the addition of Standoff as an S&D map has actually really helped them. They look like one of the best teams on specifically S&D.
That's something with Awakening, right? The guy's so talented on that S&D mode that you just expect, and as long as the team can play around him, they should be a good S&D team. And I think the other key part about this is, again, just getting Awakening and Skies on the same page. Because, when those two guys are frying, those ARs just really can't be stopped. Their mechanical skill is so gifted. It's really been, I think, about just putting how good they were in practice and applying it to the stage. I know Slacks talked about that multiple times on the flank. If you guys ever watch, ever watch that show. Yeah, he's clearly talked about how good their practice has been, and it seems like they're finally being able to put it together and see the results in game. So, honestly, not the team that I saw emerging themselves as the dark horse, but again, we saw this last year with Florida, right? They kind of started at the beginning of the year, then all of a sudden they won 3 tournaments in a row, and were a very deadly team going to the champ. So this might be their return to form, and it wouldn't really surprise me if they were able to get hot and go on another run.
Yeah, exactly, and I totally understand that. And I think there's another team that we want to add to this, but I think there's a little bit of discrepancy in who we want to add as another dark horse team. And I think it's debatable either way. I think Spencer's more on the camp of having Dallas Empire be that second dark horse team. And I may be wrong here. I'm more leaning towards the Thieves.
But man, the Thieves it's hard to say that if you before stage 4, I would agree with you. But how can you say the Thieves that they're going to start in losers? Like, the Thieves lost to Paris. They got absolutely smoked by FaZe. And don't get me wrong, I'm a big Thieves fan. I'm a big fan of the 4 that they have in front of them. And I think that in theory, there should be a 4-player combination with that talent on those 6 to have a championship caliber roster. But like, they've looked awful the last few games. So I don't know how you come off of a weekend where they get
it's a little
and they get smoked 3-0 and like one of the fastest games of the season by FaZe and be like they're the dark horse team to win it.
Yeah, you're right. I know it is a little tough, but I feel like they've kind of gone downhill lately, but I think over the course of the entire season, they've been a little more consistent. I feel like they will do a little bit better on LAN in general.
I agree that they could be a team that turns up on LAN, but I mean, they've had like so many different roster iterations over the course of the season that it's hard to be like they've been consistent because we haven't seen a consistent 4 at all, right? Like, I still wouldn't be surprised to see Hook back in this roster. So, listen,
maybe you're right.
I could maybe see a world in which they get hot on them. The talent with those 4 is absolutely there. Like, I'm not discrediting them. It's hard for me to come off of that previous weekend where they again get absolutely smoked by Atlanta FaZe and then lose 3-1 to Paris. That this doesn't instill confidence to me. I'm definitely leaning more towards the Dallas Empire. I know their week 1 was tough, right? Like, they barely beat in my opinion, developing London team 3-2, which they almost get upset. And they get absolutely, not trounced by Ultra, but they get beat pretty handily by Ultra 3-0. And it looked like Vivid was having troubles finding his way in that team, and it looked like they just weren't going to be able to put together the stage. But they come into this next week with a pretty good 3-0 victory over LAG. And LAG is one of those sneaky teams that they can take a map or 2 off, I think, any team in the league. So I was impressed to see them kind of come up with that dominant performance and, again, go up 2-1 versus New York. And, again, we talked about how there's some stuff going on behind the scenes with New York. And maybe when they have everything figured out, they're going to come in there and beat the brakes off Dallas. But I think Dallas was in a really good position to win that game. I think they have absolutely the talent and the leadership and the pedigree on that roster to be one of the best teams in the league. They've finally showing glimpses of putting it back together since Hooks left. And this could absolutely be a team that I think goes back to LAN with Crim6 and his experience. If Vivid and Shotzi can perform and Illy can find some consistency back, him and Crim, on paper they should be one of the top 5 teams in the league, in my opinion, and we're finally starting to see it. So they're the other team that I wouldn't be surprised if they really go on a run and get like a top 3, top 4 finish.
Yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe they do have a little more consistency. It was a little tough seeing them like lose to a very clearly like disturbed New York roster.
I don't know about disturbed. New York.
No, not disturbed. I don't know. Hydra's just hacking.
Yeah, Hydra clearly was sick, and
like ASIM still he's literally on ping. It's
but the problem is they're still one of the best teams in the game. Like, I agree that these are some circumstances. Like, I don't think they're firing on all cylinders, but I don't think a loss to New York means they're like
Yeah, you're probably right. You're probably right about this.
Like New York's was second best team in the game. You know, people have them number 2 going into the stage. So I do think that there's some things holding them back a little bit at this point. But I think that if Dallas was struggling to the form that we saw, they wouldn't have been in such a good position to win that game.
Yeah, you know what? You're right. I'm wrong. I am a bucket.
We'll see. No one knows, right? Like any team can pop off at LAN, right? Like I didn't have, for instance, Toronto being that team in stage 2.
We're not considering Optic Chicago a dark horse team, are we?
No, I called them the top 4. I think they're a top 4 team.
Yeah.
I like if Optic pops up on LAN, I don't think anyone's at this point. I think they're 4th, and I think people have them 4th, and I think they're rightfully at 4th, very clearly in that upper echelon of teams. And maybe you have a tier break, top 3 Optic, you know, the other 4, but I wouldn't call them a dark horse. I think they legitimately were like map 5, yeah, round 11, barely losing to Toronto Ultra on that last, you know, stage. I know they got smoked by FaZe, so maybe that drops their stonks a little bit, but going into LAN with the glimpses that they showed, like I wouldn't be surprised for them to once again be a top 4 team.
I feel like there's a tier break in between everybody and FaZe.
You could argue that as well. Like FaZe tier, Ultra New York, then Optic, and then the rest. The problem is like FaZe did lose to Ultra in stage 2, and they also did lose to New York in stage 3. And even though they were able to bounce back and win that series, let's not forget that in the winners finals, New York beat them 3-2.
Yeah, but with those types of games, I consider those like those games that you can't really almost include in the statistical model just because they're so high stakes, kind of those like playoff run type of games.
The point is that the point I'm trying to make is they're beatable. In both the last 2 majors, they've lost to 2 really good teams. Once to New York and once to Ultra. It's hard to like even versus Ultra, right? They won 2 game 5s. Like Ultra clutches up one of those search and destroys, and we're not talking about the FaZe team in the same way. So don't get me wrong, they very much are the best team in the game, in my opinion. I don't know if I'm ready to put them a tier above Ultra. When Ultra beat them in stage 2 and then went map 5 in stage 3. Like I still think that they're in that same echelon. I would put them.
I guess the only reason why I think of it as a tier above is because whenever I realistically, like I want to say don't, but whenever I go into a watch Ultra versus FaZe game, I just expect FaZe to win. Like I don't like when I think of people in the same tier, I think of like, oh, they can like trade games off of each other type of stuff. I just always expect FaZe to win.
Maybe. I think it's a consistency thing. I think we'll see. It depends how Ultra plays on LAN versus FaZe this time. I think that could definitely change.
I'm really excited for that.
Anyways, we're getting a little bit off topic here for our discussion. But yeah, Stage 4 is going to be lit, and we'll definitely bring you a video next week kind of breaking down our predictions for Stage 4 and LAN. But with that, awesome. Guys, those are our dark horses. Please let us know yours. And thank you for watching. And as always, enjoy.